Welcome back, everybody. You got Will and Iman here from the Block Runner, MetaZone, Roby, and MScribe, and today we're going to be talking about all things Bitcoin.
Yeah, man, the Bitcoin, I mean, it's about to burst. This is what we've been waiting for, right?
Yeah, man, we're at 73,000.
Yeah.
One day we'll make it a 73 million.
Soon.
It's very soon, I guess. According to like all these like institutional like bag holders now.
Yeah,
it's
that's
like
right.
These astronomical predictions. I mean, that's what you do, right? When you start
Holding
Bitcoin, it's like it's all of a sudden it's more sound than anything that's ever been ever occurred.
Yeah, created.
Yeah.
So what does $73,000 Bitcoin mean? Well, if you look at the charts in the last year, the last time it was this high was its previous all-time high at 73,000 and change.
Roughly, when was that? Like
That was May 14th.
Okay.
13th.
That was quite. So this has been quite the accumulation period. I
Yeah,
would say.
man.
Like you've had basically like 6 to 8 months or so, or maybe more. Yeah, 6 to 8 months of essentially Bitcoin just crabbing along within like a.
Anytime you see Bitcoin down 6%, that's a buy.
Yeah.
Another down 6%, buy.
Yeah. Yeah. So some people have chosen that route, and they're potentially.
Yeah.
We still have to like. I feel like we still need to violently break out of this crab walk.
Yeah, but
which it hasn't done yet.
Look at that spike, dude.
Right. So why do you think now's the time? Right.
Well,
We talked about October. Typically, this is like around the
It's
time
Trumptober, dude.
Yeah. Now it's Trumptober, right?
Yeah.
Or Trump
Priced in Tober.
Trumpvember, whatever. Yeah. I think the market is speculating that it's becoming more probabilistic of an outcome that Trump wins this election.
We can still get rug pulled though.
Yeah, like a fatal sniping for one.
Don't even speak it into existence, dude.
I mean, I don't even have to. There's like been 3 attempts. I don't have to speak nothing, dude. There's crazy enough people out there who's actively trying to do these things. But
Right.
yeah, of course, hopefully that doesn't happen because that's just like a crime against humanity, right? That's not right. You
Yeah.
can't just be out there assassinating fools.
No, you cannot. Don't do that.
Don't do that. But yeah, as far as other rug pulls, I don't know. Institutional corruption,
Yeah.
actually, like election fraud.
Yeah.
So pending all these contingencies.
They're burning these like voting booths.
Who is?
People have been the ballots. You submit them. They've been burning them.
I think there's one guy.
Yeah. Yeah, you're making it sound like.
No. There was like 2 or 3 instances of this.
Oh.
But how? Like they're with the lighters? Like they
I don't
come in?
know. Whatever mechanism you use to burn, that's what they
Fire
did.
for sure.
Yeah.
Sounds like fire might be useful in these scenarios for sure. That's crazy. I didn't know that. Did you see
Yeah, it was all over Twitter.
there's passionate people out there, dude. Right?
Yeah, I guess you do what it takes, right?
Yeah, but still. So I think this is the leading culprit for like why the market sentiment is up. Right?
Yeah.
So as a result of that, it's lock-in season, dude. That's how I like to view it.
Yeah.
You know, we've talked about like, the last year, maybe 2 years, really has been all about trying to identify where is the innovation coming from, who's actually pushing the ball into like a sensible direction.
Man, we've been looking hard.
Very hard, right? That's what led us
Holy.
to this like Bitcoin ecosystem in the first place.
Yeah, in the early days, like February, March 2023, like 2-month-old Ordinals.
Correct. Yeah, we saw like a huge, massive infrastructure void when it came to like this Bitcoin ecosystem.
Yeah.
All we saw was Ordinals. I was like, this is cool. People putting JPEGs on Bitcoin. That's interesting.
Thumbs up.
Yeah, way to go. Good job, lads. But it's like quickly, once BRC20s hit the town, it's like, this is cool too.
Sure.
Fucking shit coins on Bitcoin.
Jason, dude. I love Jason.
I never thought this would be a thing.
Yeah.
But then quickly we were like disillusioned by this. Like, this really ain't going to go anywhere
Yeah.
until somebody steps in and is like, we need to extend what we've done so far into like a programmable realm, right? So
That's
like
right.
Benny comes in and now there's many different contenders in this space, right? So
Yeah.
this is what you guys need to be looking out for. So if you missed the last 2 years of content, sucks to be you.
Yeah. But the good news is all you have to do is watch this video
That's
and
it.
you'll be caught up.
Pretty much, yeah. So let's go through the ringer. So yeah, it starts all with Ordinals, right?
Yeah. So on Magic Eden, they have a list of NFT collections, all Ordinals.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a good place to start to get exposure to all of Ordinals.
Mm.
Moving on,
Yeah.
there's another fungible token enabled by Casey Ronimer called Runes.
Yeah, so we have some intro to Ordinal playlist. You want to search it. There's 3 videos if you want to understand ordinals a little bit better. You know, essentially NFTs on Bitcoin, but with a different flair to them, right? It's using ordinal theory, which is like I guess like a sat positioning numbering scheme in order to like inject arbitrary information into Bitcoin, right? So it's a system that has been running for almost about 2 years now and hasn't collapsed in any way. So it's pretty reliable and it works. And a lot of additional layers of interesting things, which we'll talk about in a second, have been built on top of that, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Runes is a fungible token using the UTXOs of Bitcoin to represent fungibility.
Yeah, so this came after BRC20. So, yeah, like you said, also from Casey Rodimer.
And it was enabled at the halvening, which was block 840,000.
Yeah.
So it's only a few months old.
Right. Yeah, so initially the launch was pretty rough, but it's coming back in a sense because of the meme coin like narrative wave kind of washing through the entire space, right? So Runes protocol intended as like a meme coin casino, right? So it's actually showcasing its actual applicability at this moment.
Yeah, everyone has been marauded at this point.
That's right. So if you're going to maraud on Bitcoin, you might as well use the Rune, right, to do it.
Right.
That seems to be what's happening here.
Yeah, so here's a tweet by Desi. It says, get used to this. Runes are going to go much higher. And he's probably correct.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's some mindshare spillage happening. So people think of meme categories. You know, you got political memes, you got celebrity memes, and then I guess Runes is like its own little sector of memery, right? You got dog, you got pups, you got $1 billion cat.
Yeah.
And whatever, right? Whatever comes tomorrow, I'm sure there'll be something new.
Yeah,
right?
that's interesting. These Binance launch pool and the memes, 62 billion.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So talk about that, dude. Like, that's quite the, what's the word?
Discrepancy between the two valuations here.
Yeah, Runes and just memes. So, yeah, do with that. So if you guys want to participate in that, that's available, right?
Yeah, so we were talking about Benny and Track and the TAP protocol. And so they just published smart contract boilerplate on GitHub. And this is extending the proposition of Bitcoin across a functional realm that you can actually build with.
Yeah. I don't know if other people call like what TAP and what these others we're about to kind of talk about. Typically, they're called meta protocols, I guess. We think of them more as like Bitcoin extension protocols. It's like you're extending the functionality, the purpose of Bitcoin in many different verticals, right?
Yeah.
That's what TAP enables. So right now, it's like in a very much like a deployment state where like all of these new primitives are being introduced.
Yeah.
Right? Like smart contracts associated to ICP.
That's right. All right, so moving on. We're going pretty fast here because there's a lot to talk about, but I want to read this tweet here by Leo. It says, I think TAP protocol is much better solution for building dApps on Bitcoin compared to something like Stacks. With TAP, you're working directly on Bitcoin L1 using ICP canisters, so there's no need for extra layers like Stacks, POX consensus, or pegging mechanisms like SBTC. This makes TAP simpler, more efficient, and cheaper to run. Plus, it removes some of the trust assumptions that come with L2 solutions. For me, that's what makes it a more powerful choice for Bitcoin programmability.
Yeah, so I think he's onto something. So we've always kind of our thesis has always been like the value of the Bitcoin ecosystem. It's going to start on L1, right? It has to.
Yeah.
Kind of like the value of the Ethereum ecosystem last cycle. It started natively with Ethereum L1 dApps and stuff like that, right? Like Uniswap.
That's true.
Just NFTs. Like that was mostly like the cycle, like Euphoria was centered around L1 activity. But then, yeah, it kind of exhausted and became quite obvious, you know, we need like an L2 infrastructure in order to like actually scale this for sustainability's sake.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we predicted same outcome most likely would happen here on Bitcoin.
Has to happen. Bitcoin, whenever it surges, it gets to 500 sats per VBuy. That's about $30 per transaction. And that's like a cheap Ethereum transaction in like the mania.
Yeah, you remember that?
Yeah, it was like $700 for a single transaction on Ethereum.
Like a swap or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are during like the DeFi like pinnacle, right? Where like you had to hop around from different yield farming protocol to get in on like the 10,000% APYs and stuff like that. Right? That's how degenerate it got over there. So we haven't even got to that point yet here on Bitcoin with DeFi.
Right.
So
Yeah,
that's
we're
what's
barely
coming.
we're barely approaching that.
Yeah.
And so part of Tap's ecosystem is Taproot Swap. So this is a swapping protocol on Bitcoin L1. So mainnet at automated market maker beta live is October 31st. So that's in a couple of days.
Sure is Halloween, dude.
Yeah.
It's quite scary. I guess. I don't know if that's just like, oh, well, is Halloween like globally celebrated?
I don't think
It's
so.
not, right? Just a coincidence for us Yanks then.
Yeah.
We'll be swapping and trick-or-treating, I guess, at the same time.
Yeah. So we're happy to announce a swap. What to expect? Pair BTC and Tap. So Tap protocol and Tap assets.
That's
Heard
music,
of that, dude?
that's music to our ears for
Yeah.
sure.
And it says liquidity provisioning on any Tap token, fully decentralized, no order books, and choose your slippage and swap. That is music, dude.
1,000%. So if you're wondering what we meant by Bitcoin extension protocols, is like now you could do these things.
That's right.
With Bitcoin that you couldn't do before, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
So huge.
yeah. So that's what this is like. This is what you guys need to be paying attention to. Of course, memes are fun. Like you're gonna do that anyways. Chase like the meme pumpings and stuff.
Yeah.
That's important, and the retail guys will partake in that activity too, just because it's low friction. You don't have to understand all this like deep technical knowledge, right?
Yeah, but you gotta have a portfolio, and you gotta have more than just memes in your portfolio, right?
Exactly. That's what it's all about. It's mitigating risk, not having all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
You don't ignore like all this other shit that's happening, right?
Yeah. Ignore at your own risk.
Yeah, that would be silly. So we're not
agree.
going to do that either.
All right, so Tap protocol, it says bridge fee VIPs. Tap is now tradable on Bitcoin and Ethereum by utilizing the revolutionary bridge Taproot swap.
Yeah, so another example of what you could do with these like smart contracts, right? Now you can literally port Bitcoin L1 assets to Ethereum and other L1 execution environments that have their own essentially infrastructure, right? That's been built over many, many, many years, right?
That's right.
So from our perspective, this is like the tentacling for Bitcoin, right?
That's right.
But it seems like Bitcoin's forming these little tentacles and like latching onto other existing ecosystems.
Yeah, we're going to see a really good example of tentacle action here.
Are we?
Yeah.
All right. Let's see some tentacles, dude.
All right. So speaking of Tap here, so this is the Tap token that just launched recently. I did a
coin list,
a distribution event. Yeah, TDE.
Yeah, TGE, TDE, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was an airdrop essentially, right, to people who participated in that coin list.
Yeah, and I think if you had track BRC20, you also got an airdrop.
True. That's right.
Yeah.
But like we were talking about, these tokens are on Uniswap, dude.
Yeah, this is
pretty weird.
You're right. This is Uniswap.
Yeah, you wouldn't expect that. That's an Ethereum protocol, last I remember, right? It's pretty weird to see a Bitcoin asset on Ethereum.
Yeah, so TVL, $105,000. And so it went from $7 down to like $3, and now it's like at $7 and change.
Yeah, so now this token, and like we've been talking about, all Tap tokens, they have access to essentially leveraging Ethereum primitives, like creating liquidity pools.
Yeah.
That now, you know, the whole community ecosystem can partake in and like become LP providers, right?
Right.
It's very interesting. So this is good because I mean, like we just talked about, Bitcoin's about to bust. In order for the Bitcoin ecosystem like participate and like what's to follow, you know, the ridiculousness phase of the market.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we need to leverage existing tools, right? And
100%.
yeah.
Yeah, so we're looking at here, Cardano's time to shine. What does Cardano have to do with Bitcoin?
That's another one we haven't talked about in a while, dude. So yeah dude, this is weird.
Yeah, what's happening,
We've
dude?
only been talking about Bitcoin for like 2 years.
Yeah, and now all of a sudden everyone else is talking about Bitcoin.
Oh no, it's so, dude, it's, oh snap, it's crashing. Is that Twitter?
I think it's Twitter, dude.
Oh, Twitter sucks, dude.
I'm going to have to send Elon an email again.
Yeah, so why Cardano? What's happening here, dude?
All right, so apparently Cardano and Bitcoin are a perfect match.
Yeah. It's
according to this article.
Yeah, which is funny because, you know, if you understand, Charles Hoskinson, I guess, has said like different things in the past.
Yeah.
But now, because of Bitcoin OS, and we've had Eden Yago on here before.
Yeah. He was alluding to Bitcoin OS.
Yeah, and like, you know, basically also contributing in this like this tentacling, right? So let's see what he has to say, Charles.
Yeah, Charles.
the biggest thing is Bitcoin coming to Cardano. Guys, this was personal for me, and I almost cried when I saw the zero knowledge transaction happen. I didn't believe it when I first saw it. So what the Bitcoin...
So point is,
Cut him off, dude.
yeah, point is Bitcoin is coming to Cardano, and he almost cried.
How dare you cut off our cult leader, dude? Our God.
Well, I leave it here so that you guys can watch it. It's
Yeah.
a minute and 30 seconds.
I feel that.
Yeah.
The music itself didn't really help.
No,
much.
it didn't.
We're probably already copyright stricken.
Yeah, cut the
again.
music. You don't need it.
But yeah, so Bitcoin OS is essentially there's a bridge process between Bitcoin L1
Yeah.
and Cardano, and now like here we go. We got
That, and you're enabling programmability with that. That's why you would do that.
correct.
Yeah.
So continuing on.
Peter McCormick says Cardano wants your Bitcoin as nobody wants Cardano. So he's calling it a scam.
Yeah.
So what does this mean? Anytime a Bitcoin maxi calls something a scam, you need to look into it.
Yeah, it brought me deja vu of like early ordinals whenever we were first seeing ordinals kind of explode, and all these maxis were so pissed about it.
Yeah, they were like, let's prune ordinals.
Yeah.
Let's get rid of it. And
Yeah, this is like an existential threat to Bitcoin. And
Never
it's, like,
happened.
future prosperity. Yeah, it didn't happen. You just got a bunch of grumpy old graybeards essentially who have like a legacy mindset.
Yeah, that's exactly what this is. Any maxi that exists out there, they have a legacy mindset. They don't have a progressive growth mindset.
Yeah.
You need to do stuff with these assets. And if you can do stuff with Bitcoin, you're unlocking $1.4 trillion.
100%. Yeah. So this is bullish in our eyes. And so this is like the maxis reacting to, again, an inevitable occurrence. It's Bitcoin's tentaculation. Is that a word? Tentacle.
It is now.
Tentacool. That's a Pokemon, I think.
That's
Tentacruel.
Tentacruel.
There you go. We're becoming Tentacool, guys.
Wait, I think that is a Pokemon. Tentacool?
It should be, if it isn't yet.
Evolutions.
Yeah.
That's right. There's a Tentacool and a Tentacruel, I think.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, dude. So we're actively in this like evolutionary phase, right? That's fucking cool, dude.
Yeah.
I liked it. I think this gets me excited, but I'm not a maxi, right? So
Yeah. You're definitely not a maxi.
no.
All right. Build on Bitcoin says introducing the hybrid L2 vision. Bitcoin security and trust minimize BTC secured bridges to Bitcoin, Ethereum, and
Yeah.
any other L1.
So this is just more of like examples of more tentacles are emerging. Some are further out than others. Just like Benny's got like
Dude.
literally the longest flopping of a tentacle, dude. It's been out there hanging around. He's got quite the.
He's got the hang there.
It's got quite the hang time on the rest, right? But the rest of them are coming quick, dude. And it's gonna be quite the what's that thing? A Kraken? Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Quite the sea monster, right?
Yeah. Another one, Arch Network. So serious about security. DeFi and security should not be mutually exclusive. Using Bitcoin L2 or Meta Protocol requires trust in their execution and whatever bridge you use. So Arch is different. Spot swaps from DeFi market takers are completely trustless. So another network that is providing functionality on Bitcoin L1.
Yeah, or extending functionality, or just extending Bitcoin. But I think so. There's another category here of like, let's not leverage other L1s to do this. Let's build in our own like smart contract layer, essentially. Like
Yeah. So this is
native
not
L1.
using Cardano. This is not using ICP. This is like a native like functionality.
And like implementing like a new like verification process to things.
Yeah.
Essentially. But still, it's like you're extending Bitcoin still, but like a different interpretation, different model, a way to execute on that. Same with OPNet.
Yeah, OPNet, same thing. Programmability, except in a native way.
Right. Yeah. So again, you can still do cross-chain interoperability and such, down the line, I'm sure. But yeah, all these are different, I guess,
Interpretations.
contributors to like this inevitable end. Like we can't just ignore. Like this is actually Bitcoin like phasing into like a new state, right?
It's a new era. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fractal, same thing. Functionality, but on a second layer.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was popping, not so much these days.
Not as much as it was, like I guess like a month or two ago.
Yeah.
But I still want to include it as like a wild card, right? If you're a big fractal believer, I think you have viable reasons to be, considering, the whole Binance backing. We've seen in the past, like things that shouldn't make sense just because Binance has the power to like push buttons.
Yeah, so many billions of valuations out there that are not
Right.
worth that.
Right. So like, there's always that X factor, right? To fractals, like Binance is pulling strings somewhere to like, they're gonna figure out a way to like, create this new vertical out of fractal.
Yeah.
And the whole OpCat thing, right? Like if OpCat, another wild card, gambling on that outcome is like part of this bull cycle activation on Bitcoin,
Yeah.
then these fractal developers have an edge for sure.
That's true. That's true.
Right.
All right. So what else should we be looking at as far as Bitcoin? What else is called DMT?
Yeah. So we were talking about
Not the drug.
well, depending on your I don't
On your
know.
preferences?
Yeah, how like adventurous you are. But
Yes.
yeah, there's no like native drugs being produced by Bitcoin yet.
Yeah. Other than digital matter theory.
Yeah, there's digital matter. So this is like again, we were talking about ordinals, you know, additional layers being built on top of ordinals, and this is an example of that.
Yeah.
Right.
So what is DMT? It's basically Bitcoin producing assets. And here's a representation of Bitcoin producing assets. It's producing NatCats, NAT, Bitmap.
Yeah, every single block, whenever there's mine. So how is it doing that? It's because these assets are being seeded through Bitcoin block data patterns, more specifically within the data, right?
Yeah.
So in the NAT tokens case, you know, the bits value of every single block produces a fungible token supply, right? So it literally is the first token that Bitcoin creates, like at a 10-minute increment.
Literally the most interesting fungible token in crypto right now.
Yeah, we'll talk a lot more about that tomorrow. But yeah, so this is an emerging new, I guess, like native to Bitcoin market meta, right?
Yeah, this is like this is the most unique product of Bitcoin that you cannot do anywhere else on any other chain.
Yeah, so if you're wondering, if you're new to this, you're wondering why we know so much about it. We spent the last year basically talking about it. There's like 21 videos on our playlist about DMT.
Just 21, dude.
Yeah, there should be more, actually, when I think about it. A year of videos.
I know, we have like 60 videos of Bitmap.
Yeah. We were pretty fucking Bitmap heavy, dude, for
Yeah,
like
we
a
were.
3-month period. But still, so there's plenty of content, like literally from day one, whenever the standard was published,
Yeah.
to the point where it was indexed by track and tap and all this stuff. So it's been quite the journey, right?
Yeah, so what can you do with DMT? The invisible hand is starting to believe. Wait till they discover what NAT leads to, which is more NAT tokens, which are non-arbitrary tokens. UNATs, unique non-arbitrary tokens, NFTs made by Bitcoin, Bitmap,
Yeah.
Natrix, block drops, UAVs, which are
Yeah,
unique avatars and metas.
Yeah, these are all core like primitives of basically this whole thesis of we can actually build a metaverse on Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
Which Bitmap is like the infrastructure ground layer to that. And then the whole DMT protocol is essentially how you distribute assets to this metaverse like infrastructure layer, right?
Yeah.
Maintaining that non-arbitrary provenance between like how these assets are produced, right? So it's a whole new way of thinking and a whole new like way of generating digital assets. So
Yeah.
it does requires a little bit of due diligence to understand.
For sure.
To be honest. Yeah.
So with that, make sure you watch our video tomorrow because we're going to dive deep into the NAT token. So why the NAT token? It is the first non-arbitrary token made by DMT, made by Bitcoin.
Yeah, almost a year ago. So if you want to kind of like, so mScribe is basically the nucleus and hub of like DMT activity. So you can go there just to like check in on what's being minted.
Yeah. So go to the NATs page and then search for NAT, and then you'll see the NAT token. So right now the market value is $12 million, give or take. Circulating supply. Look at that number. It's juicy.
Yeah.
357 trillion and change. Why this number? Well, it's non-arbitrary. It's pointing to the bits field, and it is what it is, right? Nobody made it up.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's also UNATs on this platform as well. You go to Marketplace, you can kind of browse through them. So you got NatCats, Royals, PFP, different generative art collections. Same concept, right? What determines however many of those art pieces exist, it's all rooted to block data, just like the NAT token.
Yeah, and there are contributors to the ecosystem, tapolytics.xyz. They're supporting DMT as well, Tap token specifically. And then you can see here DMT NAT with a market cap of 169 Bitcoin, which is 12 million.
Yeah, so you can go to Tapolytics. It gives you holder counts to all these different collections.
Yeah.
Pretty seamless like interface. So it's slowly becoming like a CoinGecko-esque like service for the Tap ecosystem, and DMT being part of that.
Yeah. So we were talking about Bitmap earlier. So this is what Bitmap looks like, the metaverse on Bitcoin.
Yeah, so if you have any experience with metaverses, you're familiar with like how they work. You have land, you chunk up that land into individual pieces so you could distribute them to a community who's now part of this like construction effort.
Yeah.
And Bitmap does that in a completely non-arbitrary way, right? Each one's unique, and it's all rooted to however many squares are there and their dimensional like configuration. It's rooted to transaction data.
Yeah.
Pretty
All
cool.
non-arbitrary.
And again, we got like 60 videos, like you said, whole other playlist you guys can like consume.
Yeah, what's interesting about Bitmap, it is objectively the biggest metaverse in Web3. It has 45,000 holders, a little bit more than that. And yeah, it's the number keeps going up.
Yeah, and this is like a fresh community, right? Like if you go peer into the metaverses of yesterday, like last cycle, you're not going to like see like a
thriving,
an energized community anymore, because those are basically like, they're like in a near completed state, right? So there's like really not much you could do as far as introduce like new vectors of interest. Right? But Bitmap is a completely fresh idea, a fresh community. It's never been done on Bitcoin before. Like, so this is primed for like a bull season, like euphoria, right? Yeah,
and if you thought that we were doing a lot, well, check this out. We released the Natrix. So this is a bitmap, 716472.bitmap, our bitmap. And we did an LDE, a land distribution event. And so we're currently selling these different parcels that are orange, but you could see the community has purchased some of these parcels and replaced the parcels with their own images. And so this is actively happening right now. You can actually jump into the metaverse as like a Nat Cat, for example.
Yeah, which is a Unet, DMT asset.
Right. And so, this is a live 3D environment, which we'll show you in another video since we're running out of time. And finally, Stacks, another ecosystem participant.
They went live today with Nakamoto upgrade, dude. Finally.
It's been, like, Nakamoto was supposed to come out on the halvening, and then they delayed it for all kinds of reasons.
Yeah, I'm sure it's quite the technical initiative to pull off, right? From like an already running L2 to like completely, I guess, I don't know, rewire it to become
like a 5-second block time, dude.
Yeah, essentially like an actual Speedy Gonzalez of a
of a blockchain,
of an L2. Yeah. So this is a big deal. So like we said, everything we talked about before Stacks, it's like we predict will be like, you know, what moves the market like within the 2025 paradigm, right? Because these are like the new things that are happening on Bitcoin native to L1.
Yeah.
But at some point, it's just going to become too much, right? And like you're saying, the fees are going to get too high, and the realization is going to set in just like it did on Ethereum. We have to.
It's true.
We have to L2 this thing. We have to not just tentacle, but now like.
Yeah, and Stacks has been around since like a long time, right? They knew that you needed an L2 on Bitcoin for a while.
Yeah, I would say they were probably the pioneers in that understanding. But
definitely,
there's like more than 100 L2s, like
so true
now, like after Stacks, but still, like they'll all find their place. Some probably won't, but that's a whole other like.
That's another video.
Yeah, that might be like next cycle's potential.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'll have to think a little bit more about that.
All right, guys. So we talked about a lot. If there's any questions, definitely let us know. I mean, there's tons of stuff to kind of peer through here.
And there's a lot of things happening outside of Bitcoin too. Keep that in mind.
Really? Is there?
Yeah, Tensor, AI.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Just memes on Solana. That's not going anywhere anytime soon. It seems to get even more vitriolic as it goes by.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's, try your best to like not lose your brain, not lose your mind like during this bull cycle, right?
Yeah, that's hard to do, dude.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that's it for us. Appreciate you guys for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.
Peace.